I'm currently a United Church of Christ pastor, and I'm also a retired Chicago police officer of 31 years. I can't separate myself from the police department and from the community because I serve both. One time we had an officer who was killed, who was shot, seriously injured in the line of duty. And I was on my way to the hospital to visit that officer, angry, upset at the shooting. And I got a call from a member's family member who said, "Can you go to the hospital and visit my son?" I says, "Well, I can't go right now because I'm on my way to the hospital to visit this officer. We just had a line of duty shooting. But if you tell me where he is, I'll try to see him later." And they said, "Well, he's in Christ Hospital." And I said, "Oh, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going, so that's fine." And so I went to see the police officer, and we prayed and we cried and we talked about what had happened. I ministered with the family, and when I left, I also I went to see the friend's son who was in the hospital, only to find out he was surrounded by police because he was the shooter. And living in both of those worlds have just taught me a lot, that we have so much work to do in our society. I was angry at the shooter. I was trying to do ministry at the same time. And so the department has afforded me to see the injustice from the inside, the injustice from the outside, the injustice in community. It's wrong wherever it happens. And so I really, my ministry has more leaned toward, let's call it out what's right and what's wrong. It doesn't matter who the perpetrator is. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And if the police department needs to be called out, let's call them out. If the community needs to be called out, let's call it out. If we need to provide social programs and do policy changing to change some of the issues that are going on within our community, let's fight to do that. I mean, for me, it's so simple. It's so simple that wherever justice needs to be occurring, we need to gather together and do it. And the church needs to be at the forefront of knowing what that is and putting their mouth where their money is, rather than just shaking your head and saying, "Oh, this is just a terrible world we live in, and we need to get saved," so that we make sure that when our time is and God calls us and we answer, that we will be found faithful servants. And then we go home feeling like, yeah, I'm a faithful servant. But no, you're not. You're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite because you're not doing what God has called us to do. And I have a low tolerance for churches when we do not understand that connection between the gospel in the Christian church and what we're called to do within community. How can we serve community if we don't know the people that we're serving? If we don't understand their stories, if we don't listen to them, whether we agree with their story or not, they have a story. And maybe someplace in the midst of that story, we can find some common ground so that we can say, let's work together and get this done.